Hey guys, welcome to Walsh Weekly. This week I am speaking with Curtis, the coach of the Direwolves. If you don't know what the fuck I'm talking about, that is a League of Legends team, a professional League of Legends team based in New Zealand that recently won, I think it was the Spring Split, taking down the all-time reigning champions, the Chiefs, which is quite an accomplishment as the Chiefs had never been defeated before in this particular championship. So yeah, that's one thing to keep in mind. Also, if you're worried that you're not going to enjoy this episode because it's focused on video games or it's focused on all that kind of stuff, then yeah, you don't really need to worry about that, because I don't really focus on how do you play better League of Legends. It's sort of how do you be a better leader, how do you go about coaching these kind of people, how do you do all this sort of stuff, and why do you do it, why do you do the things you do, etc., etc. It doesn't really focus too much on the game aspect of it. So yeah, I hope you guys enjoy this episode and have a great night. Thank you very much for listening.
I'm gonna show you how great I am.
Everything around you that you call life was made up by people that were no smarter than
Everybody
you.
has time. Stop watching Lost.
I love what I do, and that's why I'm doing what I love.
Hey guys, welcome to Walsh Weekly. This week I am with the coach of the Direwolves. Hey Curtis, how are you doing today?
Hey mate, doing really well. Thanks. Yourself?
Pretty good, man, pretty good. How did you get into this whole thing? How did you start? How did you get to where you are today, being the coach of the Direwolves, being a former professional player? How did you start with this whole thing?
Well, I kind of grew up with games as a kid. I used to play a lot of Counter-Strike back when I was a kid, from beta, like 1.5.
Yeah.
And then used to play like a lot of other games, but Counter-Strike I played competitively. I got really good at it. And then eventually I just got sick of like just too many cheaters in Counter-Strike Source back in the day. So this is before Global Offensive. And then I moved on to found League of Legends one day. And I started playing. I literally found League of Legends on an advert on a website, like on the side. I just clicked on it. It was like free to play. And I was like, oh, let's try this out. I was bored. And this was in season 1. And then I just played. And one of my other mates at school, who's Rippy, like now known as Rippy, who's the CEO of Direwolves. Me and him used to play back in NA in season 1. And we just played for a few years and just screwed around pretty much. I got Diamond 1 on NA back when while I was playing on like 170 ping. Yeah. And like thought I was pretty decent at the game, and then I transitioned to Oceania, and me and Nathan made a team. That team ended up being Direwolves. Was pretty much my first. It was like my first competitive team in League of Legends, and then we ended up qualifying for a few events. Played at PAX, EP Expo, and then through that, automatically qualified for OPL. And then I just was a player for a few, I think like 2 years in the OPL. Played mid and top, and then due to work commitments in university, I end up kind of saying I couldn't do it anymore. But then since the scene was just growing even more, and I realized that League of Legends was my passion, I decided to come back, and it felt like a coach was a really good thing, because I had to have a really good idea about how the game was going to be played, and a lot of the players on the team really wanted me to come back as a coach. Because I had a lot of respect from all the players, like King and Sharonfire, Chippies and Fantix. They were really valued me as a team member, and they wanted me to come back. So ends up coming back started this year as a coach. Never coached a game before, and pretty much since then just been studying hardcore, like not even just in-game stuff, but more outside, how to be a coach, how to be a leader, how to facilitate learning for my players, and etc. And here I am today.
Yeah. So how do you jump from being a player into a coach? Is that a really difficult transition, or did you find it easy, or?
Well, at the start, it was really quite daunting, because first of all, I quit for like 6 months. So I had no idea about the meta. The game, the season was different. I had no idea how to approach the new form of macro, and from drafting as well. The before the drafting was completely different. Now they have the whole new pick ban phase. All the macro strategy I had to pick up from scratch. So all the in-game things took a long time.
Yeah.
And I would say for the first 6 weeks of OPL and Split 1, I was a very poor coach. Not even just in-game, but outside of game. But until about week 5, week 6 in OPL, I think I'm probably one of the best coaches in Oceania right now. And the biggest difficulty for me to overcome was pretty much the main things about facilitating learning and like actually being a leader rather than a member of like a standard member of the team, being a role model and kind of like developing a culture in which facilitates high performance and really fast learning has been probably one of the biggest challenges for me.
Because definitely for myself, when I look at being a coach and I look at being a player is so, I guess, independent, but you do have to be a team player, obviously. But would you say being a coach, is it a lot more about mindset? And do you still have to spend a lot of hours playing the game, or is it more you spend the hours looking at their gameplay, or how does that sort of play out?
Well, I do believe as a coach, you have to have a good grasp on the meta. So some coaches do this by playing solo queue and being really high rating. I did that at the start and I was like top 10 as a coach in the solo queue ladder because I felt like that gave me the best read on the meta. Yeah. But as I realized, I felt like my biggest weakness as a coach was the whole leadership and the actual traditional performance coaching side of things. So I started solo queuing a lot less and put a lot of my time into reading books and talking with our performance director that we have on board at Direwolves, Jonathan Brown. And also, I would say for me now grasping the meta is a lot to do with watching VODs. Yeah, I'll watch obviously games that we played throughout the day. Our two blocks of 3. I'll watch them, and but in my spare time, I'll pretty much watch all of the LCK games and most of the NALCS or decent NALCS games to kind of see what other regions are playing.
So would you say what sort of resources, because you said you were reading books on leadership and all that kind of stuff, what books would you recommend for people looking to become better leaders, etc., stuff like that?
Yeah, so like there's a wide range of things you can go for. Like well, I kind of don't want to give away too much about what I'm learning about because I don't want to give away my competitive advantage. But
I feel that.
Any books along the lines of there's like thousands and hundreds of thousands of books out there. But I'm a big fan of what's his name? Fred Kaufman.
Oh yeah.
This guy who now works at LinkedIn. His philosophy on and how he manages compassionately and leads compassionately, as well as Jeff Weiner, the CEO of LinkedIn. He also has a lot of stuff out that's really quite awesome. So they're just 2 names off the top of my head that I really learned a lot from, and how they manage compassionately and how they have a very value-based culture that kind of transcends the norms of esports and kind of I like these aspects from traditional coaching and leadership and business leadership into esports. I feel like that's the future, really.
Oh yeah, definitely. Like a few years ago, people were not even saying, like, everyone outside of the area was not considering it a sport. But now it's like everyone thinks it's a sport, and the people who don't, it's like it's a business now. It's millions of dollars. It's like it's huge now. What do you say to people who still don't think it's a sport?
Well, like, it's kind of get with the times, honestly, because it really is the future. Like, obviously as society is evolving, everything's becoming more technological based, and it really is just a game. Like, these games are just the skill cap to these games is so immense, and the spectator value is massive, and it really taps into so many age groups and so many types of people. So many people can like join in together and really respect the sport. And I feel like there's no bias. Like, no one feels left out in esports. Like, anyone at any age can really come in spend a bit of time, understand it, and respect the sport. And I feel like esports is kind of leading the way in facilitating a lot of these concepts, like learning efficiently and leadership, and honestly meeting a bunch of people with the same interests as well. Like a lot of kids who really struggled with physical sport as well have something that they can have something that they're passionate about and actually meet a lot of people through. So there's a numerous amount of advantages to like aspects of this amazing about esports. So look, I honestly believe in the next, like, obviously the numbers speak right now. I don't have the numbers on me, but
they're absolutely massive.
Yeah, you'd be pretty narrow-minded to think that esports shouldn't be considered as a good sport.
Yeah, because definitely it's like, if people consider, I don't know if people consider chess a sport, but it's like it's pretty similar. It's incredibly strategic. They train for hours and hours and hours. And with the training, do you personally, with your team, because I know I've seen in a lot of places, a lot of teams like to include physical aspects, like they go to the gym and stuff. Do you like to keep that in your team, or do you think it's sort of not that useful, or do you think the physical aspect is important?
Yeah. So at Direwolves, we have a schedule that's not kind of, we have parts in the day that we feel are mandatory. So everyone in the morning does do some form of physical activity, whether it may be going to gym, whether at the gym you may do cardio, or you may do weightlifting, or you may just go for a walk outside. It's that form of physical activity in the morning that gets the blood flowing, allows you to get some really good oxygen through your body, and actually it gets your body moving is really, really crucial. It's honestly crucial. It's like if you sit down in front of a computer screen for 9 hours a day, and you honestly, if you do not move and you do not get your body moving, like before and during and after, between these sets, your brain will honestly feel stifled, and you won't be able to focus for these long periods of time. So for anyone out there who really does want to get into esports or want to become a pro player, I really recommend taking up exercise, especially before. Some people prefer to do after, but I personally think that before the start of the day is the best time.
Yeah, definitely for myself. If I exercise first thing in the morning, I feel great for the rest of the day, unless I like completely smashed it. But it's like the majority of the time I feel pretty good. When it comes to things like you know how the meta completely changes all the time. It's completely erratic. You don't know what's coming next, etc. How do you sort of react to that? Do you find that one of the most difficult parts?
I think the changing meta is probably one of the biggest aspects as to why League of Legends is successful. So despite patch changes and meta changes being annoying for coaches and possibly even players, it honestly keeps the game exciting, and it keeps the spectators like guessing, what are the pros going to play next? What are they going to play next? The game isn't just staying stable. It isn't just sitting there in the same state. It's honestly changing, and that's what I reckon keeps the game exciting, and that's why it has so many players, because there's all these champions, they're all viable, and Riot are really good at balancing things, adding new things to make it. But in terms of adaptation, it honestly comes down to experimenting, reading the patch notes thoroughly, understanding the reasoning behind that, and then coming up with ideas and coming up with new innovative ideas that not only do well in their meta, but counter the meta. It's honestly, it really does come down to this theory crafting. You have to spend time theory crafting and then do a lot of testing.
Who comes up with those really strange, inventive ideas? Because I remember back when I played, there were all these weird things in the meta. Like, I can't even remember it much now, but like they would just have these completely irrational, like, you know, like things like way back. I don't know if people still do this, but they used to swap ADC's top. They take ADC's top. I think that's still pretty common.
Yeah, lane swaps.
Yeah, stuff like that. Or they would do double jungle or something, like stuff like that. Like, who in the team would be coming up with these ideas, or are they just created by the meta, or is it just something someone stumbles upon, or how do these things happen?
Well, generally speaking, I would think that a lot of these like niche ideas or niche picks generally come from solo queue.
Yeah,
you will see someone do it in solo queue, and like, oh wow, like I've never seen that before. Maybe I'll try it out, right? And then say a pro player tries it, and they'll try it in scrims, and then someone else will find a way to adapt that and make it work for them, and then that's how it snowballs, right? That's why solo queue is probably one of the most crucial parts of being a pro player is that, and at Direwolves, we expect all of our players to play a certain amount of hours a night of solo queue as allows players to evolve and find new things about the meta. So I would say a lot of these things originate from solo queue, but in saying that, there are a lot of teams around the world, like including us, and a lot of teams, especially in Oceania, that do test a lot and do push the boundaries to find out these little ways to get advantages. And because that's the biggest misconception of League of Legends right now is that the big things make up the wins and losses. It is literally 100 small things, like the smallest things, like these 1 second things or 2 second things that give you a second or two of tempo are the ones that change games. And that's what people fail to respect over and over again, is that as a spectator, you don't actually understand that these small advantages, whether it may be someone leashing your camp at the start of the game, can genuinely it can change the outcome of the whole game. Like that person not leashing that buff will get you to that game 2 seconds later, and then it wouldn't have worked. And then if you got that kill, then you would have been able to snowball through top, or like there's like so many things that could happen, so many scenarios. But that's honestly, that's what I have to say.
Would you say would you say that you get the best practice out of doing things like scrims? And for those who don't know, scrims is like versing other professional teams, just in like a fun, well, I guess, practice match, right? Yeah. Does it go down to like, are you versing other people mainly in the OPL, or are you versing all competitive teams below that, or how does that sort of thing work?
Well, since Dials are probably like easily I would say a top 2 team, and probably if not, the best team. I can't really say that as we just lost the legacy, but probably one of the best teams in Oceania. We generally only scrim the top 4 or 5 teams in the OPL. We try to get the best quality practice. I feel like getting versing the top, like any team other than the top 4 or 5 teams in Oceania, the skill level significantly drops off. Yeah.
Is that just because you guys do like the top 4 or 5, or is it mainly the top 2 that get to go and do face people all around the world?
Well, I would think that the skill discrepancy comes from the quality of players on their team, as well as the quality of coaching staff and management. It's a combination of that, as well as mindset and organizational goals or team goals. It's a wide range of things. Also, teams going overseas before have an inherent advantage as you have that experience. There's a bunch of things, honestly, that differentiate it. But I would mainly say it's the individual skill of players and coaching staff.
When preparing for like those tournaments, do you prepare for individual teams, or would there be specific teams? You don't have to mention, obviously, but like, when going into big tournaments, would you prepare for all teams, or do you prepare for one team that has been a challenge in the past, or that you think will be a big challenge, or do you prepare for all teams equally, or do you sort of roster it up like that?
So are you talking about international tournaments?
All of it. So when you're going into like OPL, into like international, all those things.
Well, for OPL, I would put in the same amount of effort as I would for each and every team. Maybe a little bit more so for the tougher opponents, but that's for regular split. In terms of international tournaments, well, you generally have an idea. You have an idea of who you're versing. So you look up and you see which one of the most dominant teams. Previously, when we went to MSI in Brazil earlier on in this year, I put a lot of time into the better of the 2 teams. When we went over, I think that was Brazil and the Turkish team. I put a lot more time into them rather than the Japanese team, because we felt like they're obviously a higher caliber team. So it really does depend on how confident you are against particular teams, because if you do feel like you'll just outclass certain opponents, you're obviously not going to put as much time into studying them, really getting down to the nitty gritty. But I would say, as a rule of thumb, you would want to be putting in a similar amount of time for each and every team, because no team in League of Legends, especially at an international tournament, should be underestimated.
Oh yeah, definitely. There's been tons of throws, tons of upsets, and all that. Would you say that each and every team has different styles, or do people generally go along similar things? Or because I know back when I was really into this, I knew I think it was the Koreans, they were really aggressive and all that, and then NALCS, I can't even quite remember, but some of the different regions had completely different playing styles. Do you find that is still the case, or?
Yeah, I would go to the extent to say that there are different reads on the meta in specific regions. So, obviously China, they have a different read on the meta. They have a very aggressive read on the meta, and they value some picks higher than, say, Korea and NA. So I would say that the game is played at a macro level very, very similar, but in terms of picks, that's the main thing that really changes. Just the style, maybe the style of team compositions, and the actual, the individual picks are differ.
When going into like a match against a team that is going to be quite a hard team to face, do you approach that different confidence-wise? Like, would you have a more conserved approach there, or would you try to go more risky on things like an international tournament, or how does that sort of thing play out?
Well, ideally, you would be wanting to go into every game playing the same way. You don't really want to adjust the way you're playing for a specific team. You want to be playing your style, or you never really want to be adapting to what they're doing. You constantly want to be making them play your game.
Yeah.
So by submitting to them and like playing their game, or changing the way you view the game purely because you're afraid of an opponent, or you feel like it's risky, that is already the wrong approach. We learned it the hard way that sometimes we would, against even teams in OPL, like we might adapt our picks because we feel like it would be better suited against them, but 90% of the time it bites us in the ass, and we end up wanting, we just regret it, like, we wish we just played our style, like what we think's best, and then that's honestly the way to go. Yeah.
When it comes to things like when the players are in the game, and when they're in a tournament and you are there, how much communication are you allowed to have with them, and does it change much, or how much does that vary?
Well, you're only ever allowed to talk with the players before the game and up until 5 seconds, as they get into 5 seconds left before they get into the game. So obviously through the whole pick and ban.
Is there usually a lot of chatter going on there, or is it usually the plan, etc., or are you reacting to the picks? Is that sort of how that works?
During the pick and ban, we kind of all chip in together about so obviously I'll have a plan going in, and then I'll adapt, and then I'll throw out ideas, and I'll bounce ideas off the players, and then I'll come up with a pick, and then I'll say, what do you think about this? Is this okay? Are you okay with this? And sometimes the players go, but I feel like this is the better pick, and then I have the final say, but it's a collaborative task. And once the champions are all locked in, we'll generally talk about how the game's going to get played out, what we feel like what we feel like we need to do to be able to win this game with the given composition against their given composition, and just reminders about what we've been practicing throughout the week to keep them fresh.
How do you sort of, when it comes to their mindset, when it comes to if they do face a loss, how do you bounce back from that? Because I remember even when I just played solo queue, I'd go on tilt all the time. Do you find there's a lot of coaching involved with just getting them over that whole mindset thing, or do you find that they learn a lot of that from solo queue, or?
Yeah, that's a huge thing, honestly, about coaching. Is like, honestly, the whole tilt thing, that should be something that you work on throughout the whole split. That shouldn't be something that changes. Your mindset shouldn't be something that changes given one loss in an OPL match. You should be free. That sort of issue is a long-term thing. You should be really getting putting a lot of resources and a lot of time and effort into fixing those type of problems and those mindset issues way before these important matches even come up. Honestly, and it honestly has taken us, like, I would say 6 to 7 months to even get our players into a decent mindset. That's close to a level that we expect at Direwolves. It's a really long process. It's a collaborative process in which it requires a lot of care and respect and trust between all the players and coaching staff. And obviously, there's a lot of coaching stuff that you can do to help the players with this. But yeah, it is a very long process.
Yeah. Do you find this, like, obviously they're not like, there's not a lot of drama, but when it comes to like inter-team relationships and just like trying to make everyone sort of be happy, friendly, etc., do you find that generally managing that and making sure everyone is happy and everyone is content, or do you think it's more that we need to focus on what's best for the team, or do you think the individual players are, obviously they're very crucial, but do you think that the team ruling comes above their decisions?
So is this within one org, like within?
Just in general with the team sort of life, the team lifestyle. If one player thinks this way about something, and then the rest of the team thinks this way, how do you guys handle a situation like that?
So there's techniques that within books and compassionate management that you kind of read about. Well, one that off the top of my head, it's kind of about it kind of stems from the idea that you have to accept that everything that you view in life is through your own mental model, and pretty much what that means is that every opinion that you have is based off previous experiences, maybe your upbringing, your genetics, etc., education, and that until you create a culture that, or an environment that allows people to understand this concept and allows them to understand, each person allows them to understand that everyone's opinion is valid and that it's all in the process of learning, you won't, like, until this is a thing, you'll have a lot of issues. And especially in a high stress environment, living together, you have to facilitate this type of mindset where, everyone's opinion is valid and that you should be respecting everyone and giving everyone's opinion equal amount of care, and really thinking about why they came up with that argument or why they have that opinion, and then asking, not just attacking them as a person, but attacking or questioning their behavior rather than like attacking their actual opinion. So that's like really, really important. I feel like to avoid these type of issues, it's a long process again of developing this sort of culture of care and respect for everyone on the team, and knowing that if they do have an opinion, that it's not going to be put against them, and everyone will respect their opinion equally, and that we're all going to work together to come up with a solution. Yeah.
Do you think it's more tense than most team sports? Because I don't know if it's the same in most team sports, but I know in the majority of esports, you guys are all living together, so you're spending 24 hours a day together, training for 12, 8, 16 hours a day, a very long time every day. Do you think that increases the tension quite a lot?
Yeah, of course. Like, you're living in a confined space with, up some teams, some houses have up to 10 people in a house. There's a lot of emotions, a lot of passion, and obviously when you mix passion and anger and frustration together, there's gonna be sparks, and it's just bound to happen. So like, I think that's why esports is probably one of the most passion-driven industries, and that like, it's definitely a full-time commitment. It's something that, and especially if you want to be a champion, like, you have to make a lot of sacrifices to be the best, because there's people out there practicing harder than you always. So I honestly think that, like, esports, that's what makes esports so interesting, is that you're in like a house with all these guys pursuing the same goal, and there's no escaping it. Honestly, there's no escaping. There's no escaping this. There's no private space, really. Like, you're always gonna have to find your issues. Like, it's just there. So I feel like that is probably one of the biggest differentiations between that and traditional sport. Yeah.
Would you say that what sort of sacrifices are you having to make? Like, when it comes to, I guess, living a normal life, do you think it's not really relevant just because what you're aiming for is not really normal? You're aiming for to be the best. Do you think that when people say it's unhealthy, that it makes it's sort of like irrelevant?
So you're saying what to the players sacrifice, what we sacrifice to be a programmer? Well, everyone's different, comes from a lot of different scenarios, but obviously there's not much of a social life being a pro gamer. Like, you spend sometimes upwards of like 6 days a week practicing nearly all day, and especially if you depending on what your goal is, if you want to be a mid-tier OPL team, or do you want to be a world champion? Like, there's obviously sacrifices you're going to make, but say for Direwolves, like, a lot of the players have given up, relationships. They've given up time with their family. They've given up their friends. They've given up like any social life that they had.
Yeah.
Like education. They've had to like even myself had to quit uni. Like there's so many things that you have to sacrifice, and that's like, I guess it's just part of the job. Like if you want to be a champion, then like it's not going to be easy. Otherwise, otherwise everyone's it's not even going to be it's not even going to be a prestigious thing. So it really is it is a big commitment.
How did you know when you were ready? Like because you retired for what, 6 months, right? You quit for 6 months, and then when did you know that you were just okay? Wait, no, I need to make these sacrifices. This is what I want to do. What made you realize that that's what you wanted to do?
Well, there's a few different things, but mainly I can't really it's hard for me to actually explain why I made this decision. Like logically, it doesn't actually make much sense.
Yeah.
Like for me, it did not make much sense at all. Like I had a well-paying job. I had university degree was nearly finished. I had a girlfriend, family, friends, and pretty much threw it all away.
Yeah.
To pursue a career that a team that may like the chances of them winning at the time were like low because we had a new roster. Chiefs were really dominant at the time, and like eSports is like still a question whether like in Oceania well it was going to grow, and how the OPL was going to grow, and like there was a lot of questions going on. And honestly, logically, it did not make any sense to me to make the decision that I did. But I kind of like sometimes you just make a decision based off your gut feeling, based off your heart. Like do what you're passionate about, and it may not make sense to your brain, but for me, it's just like something I just followed my heart, and I feel like it's been one of the best decisions I ever made because they're not only like the potential in esports and like how it's growing is just phenomenal, but it's more the fact that I've matured so much and I've learned so much about dealing with people and talking to people and actually just skills and leadership skills and coaching skills that would apply in any aspect or any career that I ever if I ever choose to go from League of Legends or esports, that would help me so much. So like for anyone else out there as well, like who's young and questioning, should I defer uni or should I follow my passion? Like honestly, the skills that you learn, even if you put a few years into esports, I guarantee you would help you be a better person and would be able to allow you to succeed in life further on. Like because there's times in these houses, like in gaming houses and these organizations, that really push your limits and make you mature, and you really find out who you are.
What advice would you have for someone that is deciding whether they should actually go all in on their passion or if they should just be conservative and do the safe thing, go to uni, do the safe thing? What would you say to someone debating whether or not to do their passion?
Well, first of all, you have to question whether or not your level of passion. So, are you willing to make the sacrifices? And if it goes bad, are you going to be able to cop it? Like, being a pro gamer, like there's times where you just feel like giving up. There's times where you feel so beat down that you just question like what you're doing here, and like if you can honestly say to yourself that no matter the result, like if you can honestly say to yourself that it's what makes you happy in life, then I honestly think like obviously given your situation, but I don't know the situation, but just think about like, can you handle it if it goes bad, and if it makes you happy, then do it. Honestly, like in life, if something makes you happy, it's the philosophy I go by. It's like if it makes you, if it fulfills you as a person and makes you happy, or that it really does. Like money can't really buy you that. Honestly, money can't buy you true fulfillment. So if that's what makes you fulfilled, then go for it. And for me, this competitive environment or doing something that's bigger than myself is what makes me fulfilled. So that's why I'm here.
Yeah. Would you say that you've definitely, do you think you've learned more as a person being a coach than you did as a competitive player?
Well, it's hard for me to say because when I was a player, there was no gaming houses. I was a pro player when it was all online.
Yeah.
So a lot of the things that I learned is pretty much all because you're in a gaming house. So but I would say that if I wasn't as a player now, I would learn I would learn pretty much if the same. Like if I was a coach or a player, like it's just being in the house really and surrounding yourself in such an intense environment it allows you to mature and gain perspective.
Yeah. What would you say? What would your advice be to someone if they wanted to become a pro player or become a coach in the future? What would you say to them if they're looking to get into this whole thing?
Well, if you're wanting to be a player, I would say critically analyze your gameplay in every single solo queue game you play. Aim to get rank 1. If you get rank 1 or even top 10 on any server around the world, you're bound to get picked up by a pro team. There's just no way. And as long as you maintain a decent mentality, every single game you go into, even if you do well, focus on your mistakes and not what everyone else did wrong. You focus on yourself, only yourself, and just be a nice person, be open to talk and help people, and focus on yourself, and you'll 100% get picked up. If you really, really want it bad enough, you will get a high ranking. I don't believe in natural. In esports, I honestly don't believe that there's just someone who's just naturally talented to be the best. You can have zero natural talent in games, but if you want it bad enough and you focus hard enough, you can get rank 1. And I believe anyone can get rank 1 if they want it bad enough. I feel like the only advantage someone does have, like maybe genetically, is their way how fast they learn. That is the only thing, and you can learn skills that teach you how to learn faster. Just if you really want it, you try hard enough, you'll get it. So I would say aim for rank 1 and give it your all. And every single game, critically analyze yourself and ask for tips. Watch VODs. There's so much content out there on YouTube to help you understand the macro game as well. So pretty much focus on your mechanics and focusing on your role. I would say obviously choose one role and main one role. Yeah. So it's really easy for a team to pick you up because not many teams will pick up someone who's like a fill. They'll probably pick someone up who's just mains one role. And for coaching is a bit of a hard one, honestly. I would say for being a coach, I would study the game, put out a lot of good material. Not only just study the game, but study traditional coaching and performance coaching to make you stand out. And then I would put out a bunch of content on the internet somewhere, and I would create a portfolio or create in your resume, link all your work that you've done, and pretty much just obviously if you want to get exposure, put it on Reddit and stuff like that, and just show people that you know your shit. That's it. No team wants to pick up someone who it's just all words. It literally is just put content out there, and if people like it, you'll get picked up. So again, coaching literally comes just down to putting out content and people seeing it and just being like, oh wow, this is actually, this guy's a well-spoken, intelligent man man or woman, and I would like them to be a coach. It really does come down to just how much effort you put in, how bad you want it, and if you want it bad enough, you'll be able to achieve whatever you want.
What would you say to because I noticed you mentioned how there's no difference between people when it comes to maybe some abilities like learning, but when it seems like so impossible, like when you're versing these absolutely huge teams with like millions and millions of dollars of budget compared to like OPL, they don't have the budget that those huge teams do. How do you deal with that whole thing? Does it change the way that you think when you're going into preparing for those teams? Does it make you scared? How does that sort of thing play out when they have so much power backing them?
Honestly, I don't even think about that rather when I host a team. The only thing I look is the gameplay, and I would say, honestly, like you could have a team that has like a little to no budget, and you had you stuck them in Korean solo queue, and you got like 5 Korean solo queue players that was like really high rating, like they would be able to take down like 90% of the teams around the world. Honestly, it's just like I would say that there are a lot of advantages to having a large budget because it will open you up to things like having sports psychologists and nutritionists and stuff like that. But honestly, that'd be the last of my worries. Honestly, you'd be purely focusing on what their level of play is, and purely focusing on their in-game play. But in saying that, they obviously would have advantages that would stem even outside the game. But you don't really want to be focusing too much on that stuff.
Yeah, because there's a bit of useless focus there. When it comes to things like nutrition, is nutrition a huge focus? Or is it sort of like, if you had to prioritize the focuses, would it be gameplay, team, and then fitness and health? Would it have to come last? Or how would that sort of play out?
Well, in Dials, I think it's obviously gameplay, and then following gameplay is like your mindset and like the mental strength and all that. And then it would go, and then you would prioritize health and fitness and nutrition.
There we go. What would your last piece of advice be for anyone looking to change themselves and help themselves become better with people in general, and just sort of not become a leader in a sense, but help themselves be a more honest, helpful, and productive person?
Like I read this book recently that spoke about living a life that is driven through your values as a person, right? So I would say that writing down your values as a person, like what you value in life, whether it may be, it may be you may value, say, love or happiness, or you may value material goods or whatever. But if you say material goods, material goods actually go deeper than that. It goes maybe material goods, but then they may make you feel empowered, which or popular, and that also because you want to feel happy, right? Like I would honestly pinpoint what your values are in life, and then I would honestly live a life, or like just be aware that anything you do in life should be in line with what your values are. So if you want to be an extremely kind and loving person, then just think about what things that you do throughout the day, and if that is in line with your values. So like, if you're going down the road and you feel like one of your values is being compassionate, then like, maybe you see someone down the street like struggling to like push their trolley properly, or like, you just help them out. Like I would say honestly the biggest thing is just like being aware of what makes you fulfilled in life, and acting according to what your values say about yourself.
Too right. Because I reckon ever since I started this whole thing, I've just become much more fulfilled, just because what I'm trying to do is go all in on what I care about. And I feel like that's something you've done as well, because it's something you're very passionate about, and you've had to make a huge amount of sacrifices to get to where you are, and to stay where you are, and then to get from where you were. And now you guys were second for a long time, right? And then now you're first in OPL, right?
Yeah.
Don't want to don't want to brag too much.
Well, we will be, like, we're second on the ladder at the moment. We came first last split, but I'm feeling pretty confident that we'll take it.
feeling good. Sweet as, man. I think I'll probably cap it off there. Thank you so much for being here. I know you're probably very busy with this, and thank you very much.
It's all good, anytime.
Hey guys, thank you very much for listening. I would love if you would leave a review or subscribe to the podcast on iTunes, Podbean, wherever you're listening to this on. And I would also love if you would check Curtis out on his social media, which I've left in the show notes.